Evening, girls. So yeah, I drowned my phone. And by I drowned my phone, I mean like I got really annoyed with it and I just drowned it like it was a person. An entire video filmed of like me reading 3 more Jacqueline Wilson books. And then obviously, I drowned it. I'm gonna have to kind of do like a write-up of all of them and give you like a recap instead of like a vlog. Is, rubbish, but you do what you gotta do. Anyway, guys, I've had like the worst week. Like, you do not understand. I've had all this drama with this lad. Oh my God, and he's just a How far are we into the video? I've not done well with relationships this year. It's been an experience, girls. Boys don't like me. So anyway, because I've had a really bad week, because I was on the night shift last night, I thought, you know what? Well, I'm gonna have to film things out of order anyway. I thought I may as well just get on with one that I feel like I want to read. And so I started reading Love Lessons. I'm only a couple of pages in. I don't remember anything about this one except the important shit. Like, she's got like a mean, controlling dad, and she ends up having an affair with her art teacher. I feel like it's going to be really interesting to see how this issue was handled in this book, because it's from like 2005. It'll be interesting to see how the relationship is like portrayed and stuff compared to like other books we read that had this same dynamic. Actually, like, I read the Happy Ever After, which was from like the 50s, and then I read the Sarah Bernard one, which was from a couple of years ago. So to be fair, this is a nice middle ground, and maybe we can see the progression of student-teacher relationships in books over the course of time, and hopefully it's better than in that Gossip Girl. I'm gonna go read like a chapter of this, and then I'm probably gonna get in bed because I'm knackered, babe, and there's fuck all going on. So I finished Love Lessons half an hour ago, and I'm still unsure what I'm going to say about it. So usually I've got some kind of a small idea of what's going on, but not today. Maybe I should just talk about the plot a little bit and see where that goes. The main character of this book is called Prudence, and she's 14. She and her younger sister Grace are homeschooled, and their dad's like really strict and old-fashioned. They live this like really conservative life. They make all of their clothes like their mum makes them. They don't have a TV, and they don't have the internet. Obviously this was set a while back, so that wasn't... The TV was a big deal. The internet wasn't as big of a deal at the time, I don't think. I think I had internet when I was reading this book. The parents are getting threatened by like the local authority or whatever that Prudence needs to be preparing for her GCSEs. And she needs to be up to scratch. They end up sending her to maths tuition, but she's like really, really hopeless at maths. So she doesn't go, and she ends up wandering around the town and, rebelling a little bit. Buys like some art stuff because she likes art. And she buys some sexy underwear, like the girls she reads about in the teen magazines that she likes to smuggle under her mattress. Her dad finds out that she hasn't been going to the tuition and asks her to give him the money back. Obviously she hasn't got the money. He says like, what have you spent it on? And he doesn't believe her that she's bought underwear, and so she gets really riled up and she goes and throws the underwear in his face. Dad ends up having a stroke. Obviously the dad can't teach the kids anymore at home, so the mum makes an executive decision to send them to school, and they end up going to the local like rough school. Her little sister ends up fitting in quite easily, but Prue really doesn't. She like finds it really hard to adjust. I think it's because she is a smart kid. Her parents like praised her for being smart all the time, and because obviously she's at home, she's just used to being herself and speaking her mind all the time, and like she doesn't understand the etiquette that's supposed to go between like students and teachers. I don't think the teachers understand that she doesn't understand that, and so a lot of the time they think she's being insolent. And then Prue's a little bit fiery as well, so once they start being a dick to her, that's when she does start being insolent. So she doesn't make a very good name for herself. Like, she wears the grown-up underwear on her first day of school for a little bit of confidence, and all the girls see it when she gets changed for PE, and that gets her a bit of a reputation as well. She ends up... This lad fancies her, and his girlfriend is like the artist girl in the class, and you know, they end up having a rivalry. So she's really, really not popular. And the one bit of solace that she has is her art class and her art teacher, Mr. Raxberry. Obviously, Prue's very gifted at art. Mr. Raxberry is a young and, you know, quite empathetic teacher. They form a bond. She ends up coming to babysit for him because obviously he knows that her and her family are in a little bit of financial trouble, and somewhat of a relationship does blossom between them. Unsure whether any of it was like intentional on his end. There's no like kind of indication that he asked her to come and babysit because he fancied her or anything like that. The relationship itself is very like murky. I don't even know if you could call this a relationship, really. What happens is she's babysitting for him while he and his wife go out on dates, whatever. And then they have 10 minutes together in the car when he's dropping her off. And, you know, they talk and they bond maybe more than they should do, but nothing untoward really happened. A few of the comments that Prue mentions Mr. Raxberry makes to her are a little bit like inappropriate and strange. Like the one that got me was she first came to the school in one of her homemade dresses because they didn't have uniforms yet, and you know, when she starts wearing more sophisticated stuff, he's like, oh, I still have a soft spot for the red check dress. For a teacher to say to a student he has like a soft spot for a certain piece of clothing, that's weird. Like that, but that was like kind of the first and only indication I really got that Mr. Raxberry was interested in Prue as anything more than a student. Before, of course, I think Mr. Raxberry starts to realise that maybe he's grown a little bit too close to Prue. He starts to worry that, you know, somebody's going to suspect there's something going on. And so he tries to nip it in the bud. And he says, Prue, I don't think you should come anymore. I think you should tell my wife that you can't babysit, and, you know, we'll just leave it there. Prue isn't happy about this. And you know, she argues with him. She's like, I can't leave this, like I love you. And he's like, how can you love me? Nothing's even happened yet. And she says, well, it has now, and she kisses him. He does resist briefly, but the two of them end up kissing, and he does tell Prue that he is in love with her. The relationship is not of a sexual nature. He doesn't make any sexual advantage. It's actually quite sweet and romantic the way he is with her, or would be if he wasn't a fully grown man. Prue's dad comes home from the stroke unit. He's not happy about them going back to school. Prue runs out. She goes to tell Rax. One of the other students sees her crying and telling Mr. Raxberry that she loves him, and, you know, accidentally says something in front of a teacher. When Prue gets asked about it, she defends him. And because Mr. Raxberry has also gone along with this narrative that Prue's just a pathetic teenager who has a crush on him and his feelings are not reciprocated at all, the head teacher decides, rather than have the hassle of a scandal at her school, she's gonna get Prue transferred and just sweep everything under the rug. A really weird book. I didn't find it really as enjoyable as some of the other ones. I was really looking forward to reading this one and kind of seeing what the deal was, because I remembered the content of it, but I couldn't really remember how it had been handled. I remember when I was younger, I thought the relationship between Prue and Mr. Raxberry was romantic, as much as it was very short-lived. There are no repercussions for Mr. Raxberry at the end of this. I think that for the time period, it was probably pretty accurate, to be fair. I think there were probably a lot of head teachers willing to sweep minor offences like this under the rug, you know, in order to save themselves a bit of hassle. I would have liked some kind of scene where Prue realised that she'd been kind of taken advantage of. The story does not read like that at all. The one thing that can be said is that it was handled realistically. The fact that it was told from Prue's point of view, you know, leaves out a lot of exploration that could have been done. At the end of the day, Prue and Rax don't run away together. They don't have a happy life. He stays with his wife and his kids. They never see each other again, and Prue's left lonely and kicked out of school. So, to be fair, there is a lesson to be learned there. It's just, you know, whether young readers might think that the fling is worth it at the end of the day, I don't know. It was a weird one. I'm a bit disappointed in myself for taking the books out of order, to be honest. But, you know, I was having a hard week. If you would like to know what happened to the boy I was speaking to, girl, he's gone. I kind of think that's all I've got to say on love lessons, to be honest. It was a bit of a strange one. Hi, it's a few hours later. I'm gonna jump in the bath. So I've decided what I'm gonna do. Stick this little beauty back in here. I read them 3 in the first one. I've read those 3 and you don't have a clue. So I'm gonna have to talk about them at some point. So I was thinking I'll read this one just because I want to. And it's Dustbin Baby. This was my absolute favourite, I'm pretty sure. This is the only one that is still my actual copy. Like, I got the rest from charity shops and stuff. This is the one that, like, has been on my shelf for years and years, as you can kind of tell, because it's a little bit wrecked. I can probably remember this one the most vividly. It's probably the one that I've read, like, the most times. I know that, like, her name is April, and she's adopted. It's her birthday, and she goes on this big, long, like, journey to, like, discover herself. She goes back to all the places that she's been in her life and, like, relives all her memories. And there is some really fucked up shit in here, so I'm actually just really eager to get into it in my bath. I don't know. So let's go, boys. This is a fucking tiny book as well. Like, it's, like, same size as my head. I've got a pee head, Mimi. Right, in a bit. Evening. I've been doing some exercise in the garden, so excuse the state. I also finished Dustbin Baby in the car today, so I thought I'd better talk about that while I'm having a little break. It's mega warm. Apparently it's like the warmest day of the year or something like that, but it's evening time now and luckily it's cooled off a little bit. I don't really have a lot to say about this one. Again, it's weird how there's like a disconnect between the ones I enjoyed as a kid and the ones that I enjoy now. I think it's got a lot to do with detail, because to be fair, it is a really good story. April's fostered and it's her birthday. She has this big fight with her foster mother and she goes on this big soul-searching journey, like back to all these places from her past to try and like do this like journey of self-discovery. I don't know. Like, as you can see, it's like a really short, really small book, and so Glenn Wilson didn't have a lot of time to go into a lot of detail, and so trying to fit April's entire 14 years plus all the new experiences she was having going back to these places and meeting the people from her past, there wasn't a lot of time to go into a lot of detail, and I probably wouldn't have minded that a lot when I was younger, but now that I'm older, I really wanted to hear more about like the situations that April was in. This isn't a criticism, because I understand that April is on a journey to discover herself and this kind of defeats the point of that, but hear me out. I think that because Jacqueline Wilson was trying to cram so much story into this little book, it kind of erased April's character a little bit, and we never really got to find out who she really was as a person. But then again, April is obviously struggling with who she is as a person herself, so maybe that's why. She just feels a little bit blank as a character, and you know, with Jacqueline Wilson usually writing characters that are so like full of life and stuff, it was a little bit off for me personally. Some shocking stuff in this one. Obviously it is for older readers, and again, I did read it when I was too young. There's this one particular bit that I do remember reading when I was younger, and I can remember being able to imagine it really vividly, and it really did. It was a little bit disturbing, and I think I was a little bit of a morbid child. We've been through this, but it's the bit where April's first foster mother, she takes her own life, and April's very blunt and very straightforward about how it is done and what happens in that situation. There's no like shying away from it, and I think they're like, it's a really bold move, but it does work and it does have the intended effects. At the end of the day, as by rights every story about adopted children should, her search for a mother brings her back to her foster mother, and it's all very sweet. But April also gets in touch with the guy who found her in the dustbin where she was abandoned by her mother when she was a baby. She gets to find out about the earliest moments of her life that she can, and kind of start to get this sense of who she was so she can find out who she is. It's a really nice ending to the story and I enjoyed it. Hello again. It's the next day. Pretty much just having a break right now and having a sit down to myself because I've been busy. I've been at work. And then I'm going to go and get changed and do a little bit more exercise because I'm going on holiday next month and I have to like exist in a bikini. It's not that I'm unhappy with my body or anything because, you know, it works and stuff, so I can't complain. I have been wanting to get back on track with my exercise for ages now. Like I used to do like an hour every day and now I don't even do an hour a week. I kind of used the month leading up to the holiday as a deadline, and like I'm trying to do an hour every day until the holiday, and then hopefully by that time I'll be feeling pretty good about myself and I will want to keep it up. Anyway, that's the theory. Anyway, that's not what I wanted to talk to you about. What I wanted to talk to you about was the fact that I finished Double Act. I finished it last night when I was in bed. You know, it was a good little read. I really do just love the slice of lifeness of Jacqueline Wilson. The fact that the majority of her stories don't have this like one through line of what they're about. It's just some random events that happen in the lives of these children. Like I said, this particular one is about Ruby and Garnet, who are twins. And Ruby is this very like outgoing girl and Garnet's not like that. And so Ruby kind of encourages Garnet to be naughty along with her. And also there's this like theme throughout the book of how like growing up the girls are basically being one person. Now that they're getting a bit older, they're starting to develop their own personalities and hobbies that maybe don't coincide with each other's. I would think that this would be harder for Ruby because, you know, Ruby's more outgoing and stuff, and so maybe she would come into her own more naturally, but actually it's Ruby who finds it the hardest because she's always had Garnet as this backup to her who's always going to do as she says and who's always going to be around to support her, and like she's kind of put her dreams onto Garnet and stuff like that, and her personality onto Garnet. Like Ruby wants to be an actress and Garnet gets really, really scared and nervous on stage, and so she obviously doesn't want to do that. But Ruby won't take no for an answer just because she knows that Garnet can do it when the two of them are on their own. And, you know, it's just the way that it has to be. They've got to do shit together. Their mum died and their dad meets this new woman called Rose at the beginning of the book. And, like, it culminates in they lived with their gran, and dad ends up moving gran into this, like sheltered accommodation place. And like moving off with this woman into the countryside. The woman's called Rose. The girls hate her naturally and it caused trouble for the relationship at first. Something that really annoys Ruby is that obviously Garnet is more willing to get to know people, and this includes Rose, and there's this other girl at their new school who Garnet might be getting friendly with, and then Ruby kicks off and gets jealous, and so Garnet stops being friends with her. We can see as an audience that Ruby's holding Garnet back from fitting in and making new friends. From the girl's perspective, it's always Garnet holding Ruby back because Ruby's always been the cooler one. So Ruby ends up making them run away and go to this audition to be the twins at St. Clair's in some TV show. And they don't get it because Garnet mucks it up because she's really, really nervous, bless her. On the way out, Garnet hears someone say pity about her twin, about Ruby. So this is kind of like everything that Garnet's ever feared come true, right? Like everyone's noticed that she's like the shit twin and that she's the one who's always holding Ruby back. But then they decide that they want to go to the posh boarding school that the twins at St. Clair's was going to be filmed at. And of course, because Ruby has been copying off Garnet for most of their school lives, Ruby completely dive bombs on the exam and Garnet ends up getting the scholarship and Ruby does not. And so the twins are going to be separated. Ruby does not take this well. She won't speak to Garnet and she doesn't want to be like associated with Garnet anymore. Like she tries her very hardest not to look like Garnet. She shaves off all her hair. Obviously they reconcile before Garnet goes to school, but it's, you know, it's really good. It's really fun to, well, maybe not fun, but it's interesting to read about this big character who really needs their emotional support sister, you know? Probably a really important book for some siblings because there's always a little bit of rivalry. My sister's a lot older than me, so we never really had that. And we were always very diverse in personality, so there wasn't a lot of room for competition with us two. It was very clear from the start that we each had our own strengths. This is something that a lot of siblings will probably have to learn growing up, and, you know, not to be like jealous of the fact that maybe your brother's better than you at football, or your sister's better than you at ice hockey, and your uncle's better than you at growing dope. I don't know. We don't really have a lot to say about this one. It's a cute, fun little read. Nothing too deep going on in this one, and nothing too traumatic either, which is nice. Although it does feature 10-year-olds, so maybe Jacqueline Wilson felt like she couldn't get away with it as much. So, apart from obviously catching up on the 3 books that I read and then lost the video, I'm probably going to be taking a break from the Jacqueline Wilsons for a while because I've only got 2 left and I like to read them in threes, so I'm going to wait until I have a few more. Do you know what? I had a really nice experience catching up on these, and I hope I can find some more of them soon because there's some ones I'm really looking forward to reading that I haven't got yet. Like, the whole reason that I started this excursion was because I wanted to read The Illustrated Mum, and then I remembered things like Vicky Angel is one that I would really like to read, and Bad Girls as well. I remember really liking Bad Girls when I was younger. It would be really good if I could get those for next time. Yeah, I'll see you soon.